heads of state and government meeting Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, took a bold and historic decision to declare October 25 as the day on which the entire SADC region would collectively voice its disapproval and condemnation of the illegal sanctions imposed on our country, Zimbabwe. These unjustified and oppressive illegal sanctions continue to cause untold suffering to the ordinary people of our great country. Their direct and indirect debilitating impacts have equally been felt by our neighbors in the region. Today, we arise and collectively say, enough is enough. The illegal sanctions are an albatross to the development, well-being, and prosperity of the people of Zimbabwe. Sanctions must go. Remove them now. As we meet throughout the country on this landmark day, let it be known that we are united in purpose, resolve, and determination. Our friends and neighbors equally join our call today. As a nation and as a people, we say, thank you, SADC, for standing by us and for speaking with one voice at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly last month. We also say thank you to the African Union and the progressive world for supporting us during these difficult years in the history of our country. Fellow Zimbabweans, comrades and friends, to you I say, thank you for turning out from all walks of life in such huge numbers to mark this important day. Your active participation in all the activities that took place across the country, building up to this event, is ample testimony that we are all united against the illegal and unjustified sanctions on our country. We are indeed stronger together. Dear comrades, the dispossession of our land was one of the primary grievances which led us to wage the protracted armed liberation struggle for our country. Ours was a fight to reunite the land with its people and the people with their land, which promise we fulfilled during the land reform exercise. However, this had dire consequences and led to the imposition of the illegal and unjustifiable sanctions by the European Union and the United States of America. The Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act, ZDERA, was passed in 2001, which saw our country being denied access to International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank Development Finance and Credit Facilities. The ZDERA works in conjunction with the United States executive orders, which are renewed yearly and prohibit Zimbabwean entities and individuals from doing any business with the United States of America. Those who act in defiance to this law risk their financial transactions being blocked or penalized. In addition, travel bans and asset freezes have been imposed on a number of our citizens on frivolous allegations. Furthermore, ZDERA has blocked Zimbabwe's access to international credit markets, leading to the drying up of traditional sources of external finance. The country has not received any budget support from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank since the imposition of sanctions. And as a result, the government has been forced to virtually operate from hand to mouth. The sanctions have also branded Zimbabwe's financial linkages with the rest of the world as a high risk, thereby making our banks compelling targets for de-risking interventions by corresponding banks in the United States and Europe. To date, some of our local commercial banks have been slapped with staggering bills of dollars in fines. My fellow countrymen, for nearly 20 years we have lived under the unbearable weight of these illegal sanctions. Their impact on our daily lives is immeasurable and the consequences are dire. We know very well that the sanctions are neither smart nor targeted. Two agriculture and infrastructure development banks were placed under sanctions, which saw them losing millions in lines of credit and reputational damage. State-owned companies and their subsidiary companies in the fertilizer industry had their accounts frozen. Millions belonging to another chemical manufacturing company were also intercepted. Another state-owned company responsible for marketing the country's minerals lost revenue in similar circumstances. The list goes on. Many of our people have over the years lost loved ones in our hospitals due to the impact of sanctions on our health delivery system. Meanwhile, breadwinners have found themselves without jobs as industries and companies downsized or closed down. Those in the industrial sector are denied international credit to retool their businesses. Importers are asked to pay cash up front, and our exporters are denied access into some markets. The manufacturing sector has seen the country losing most of its overseas international markets. The negative perception that has come with sanctions has impacted on foreign direct investment inflows. This in turn negatively affects our economic growth, balance of payment position, and employment levels. University students, the academia, and members of the media fraternity, among others, are denied opportunities to participate at international fora to broaden their skills and competencies. Every part of our country and sector of the economy has been affected by these sanctions. Like a cancer, the sanctions know neither color nor creed, age or gender, and affect the rich and vulnerable as well as the young and old alike. It is clear and undeniable that sanctions were a reaction to the just and necessary act of redistributing our land. For the avoidance of doubt, we shall never regret that necessary action, and our land reform program shall forever remain irreversible. We will not betray the many sons and daughters of our country who paid the supreme sacrifice fighting to liberate our land. The act of imposing these ruinous sanctions was against the very great spirit and letter of the United Nations Charter and a gross violation of the core tenets of international law. They are illegal and unjustified, with no place in a modern and progressive world which espouses the equality of all nations. As the people of Zimbabwe, we cannot continue to have the right to have our collective fundamental human rights, dignity, and worth trampled upon as a result of the continued presence of this albatross of sanctions. This injustice of sanctions on our nation, our people, and on our economy cannot continue. Enough is enough. Remove them. Remove these sanctions now. Fellow Zimbabweans, agriculture is the backbone of our economy, providing employment and income to our population, and also supplying raw materials for our manufacturing sector. Regrettably, sanctions have made it extremely difficult to access lines of credit and attract investment into this sector. The sanctions resulted in our inability to develop our irrigation potential, which could have a significant impact to the national food security and agricultural growth. Without such essential investment, our country remains vulnerable to climate change. The market access for horticulture produce, sugar, beef, and cotton, among other crops, into lucrative European markets has also been denied. The mining sector has remained constrained due to lack of funding for recapitalization in the face of this continued sanction regime. Of particular concern are the two minerals marketing companies which were designated by the United States of America and EU. Assets belonging to these companies within the USA and the EU were frozen. The sanctions have continued to make it difficult for our diamond companies to market and trade at competitive prices. The sanctions have slowed the rate of implementation of capital projects in the energy sector, resulting in curtailed and unreliable power infrastructure, insecure power supply, and an uncompetitive industrial sector. Oil importers now have to operate on upfront payments as credit facilities have since stopped, resulting in the erratic fuel supply. The bottom line has been the erratic supply of some basic products and reduced quality of life of most of our people. Meanwhile, our road and rail infrastructure needs expansion, needs modernization, and needs refurbishment. The sanctions have directly perpetuated the cycle of poverty in the country and curtailed our momentum to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. There are far-reaching implications on SADC's ability to achieve its collective targets in the social, economic, and financial spheres cannot be ignored. This is the reality of these deleterious sanctions on our country. No amount of propaganda can spin or sugarcoat this gruesome truth. The continued judgment and setting of utopian standards for Zimbabwe, which are never applied in any other jurisdictions, are callous, vindictive, and should not be allowed to continue. This is the basis on which we say enough is enough. Remove these sanctions. Fellow Zimbabweans and distinguished guests, we are a strong and a proud people, a nation of warriors, a nation of the House of Stone. Like the great Zimbabwe, we shall continue to stand fortified and strong, united by the spirits of those who paid the supreme sacrifice for this country, and emboldened by the resilience, perseverance, and hope of this generation, which is hoping for the better, brighter and happier, a prosperous tomorrow. Forward ever, backward never, Zimbabwe shall survive. Today, we do not mourn, but we renew our resolve to succeed as a nation, despite the odds against us. Together, in love, peace, unity, and harmony, Vision 2030 shall become a reality. My government will continue to take measures to mitigate against the impact of these illegal sanctions. To date, we have maximized revenue collection and ensured efficient utilization of scarce resources to boost the critical areas, for example, through programs such as the Smart Agriculture Program, introduction of the monocurrency regime to boost our country's competitiveness and the competitiveness of our manufacturing sector, fighting the scourge of corruption, plugging revenue linkages, dealing with currency manipulation and artificially high price hikes caused by the greedy and the cartels and businesses, creation and support of vibrant provincial economies and rural industry systems, resuscitation of our public transport sector, modernization and expansion of our health delivery system, as well as the qualitative improvement of our education sector with an increased focus on science, technology, and innovation. Protection of the vulnerable members of our society through provision of social safety nets, and lastly, support and empowerment of women and the youth and the disabled. Under the Second Republic, we, the people of Zimbabwe, on our own volition and for our own benefit, have taken a conscious and deliberate decision to reform our political and economic systems. We have opened up both our political and economic space under my leadership. Constitutionalism, democracy, the rule of law, transparency, accountability, and inalienable human rights of all citizens shall continue to be the hallmark of our great country. The engagement and re-engagement policy, as well as the peaceful coexistence with all nations of the world, are now the key pillars of our foreign policy. The culture of dialogue, peaceful resolution of disputes, and acceptance of divergent views will continue to be inculcated among our people. Today we stand with our arms outstretched to all countries of the world for mutually beneficial partnerships that improves the lives of our people. Comrades, allow me to acknowledge and commend the European Union for taking some initial positive steps towards responding to our offer for dialogue and friendship. The EU has begun progressively removing the sanctions that it imposed on us, thereby allowing us to access some development assistance under the European Development Fund. Complementing these practical actions is an ongoing political dialogue to strengthen our bilateral cooperation with them. We call on the United States government to immediately and unconditionally remove the sanctions they have imposed on our country for the sake of our children, living and unborn, our youth, our women, the elderly, and our economy as a whole. We, the people of Zimbabwe, deserve to grow, deserve to develop, we deserve to modernize, we deserve to industrialize and prosper without the albatross of sanctions imposed by the United States of America. The removal of these sanctions is just and indeed a fundamental right for the people of the Republic of Zimbabwe. To the ambassadors accredited to Zimbabwe, you live, you work, and you walk among us. These sanctions affect you too, and we have seen their far-reaching effects on our people. We invite you to stand with the ordinary people of Zimbabwe and report truthfully about the positive developments in our country, Zimbabwe. We urge you to carry our message of goodwill to your capitals and to pass on our call for them to respond to the new realities in our country and review their policies that do not serve the purpose of progressive cooperation with Zimbabwe. We are, however, greatly thankful to our SADC ambassadors, AU ambassadors, and other progressive ambassadors from developing countries who support us on the call to remove these sanctions. A Zimbabwe free from sanctions is a better and a more valuable partner to you all. We remain resolute and enduring in our commitment to dialogue, friendship, and mutually beneficial partnerships. Allow me to extend special gratitude to for their unprecedented pledge of solidarity with Zimbabwe, which led to this historic day. We are equally appreciative of all the warm messages of solidarity expressed here today during the fellow Zimbabweans and comrades. Let me reiterate my gratitude to you, the people of our great country, for your sacrifices and unwavering support you have given to me and my government during these challenging times. Your steadfastness and patriotism is not in vain. We may be hard praised on every side, but we are not crushed. Let us not despair. Let us arise and shine and play our respective roles in the various sectors of the economy. We must roll up our sleeves and work. Productivity, and more productivity in every sector, in agriculture, in mining, in manufacturing, in tourism, SMEs, and all other subsectors of our economy. The Lord shall surely bless the works of our hands. Let us continue to preach peace, 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 love and harmony. United we stand, divided we fall. I say to the other political parties who have come to dialogue, we as a people, you have demonstrated your patriotism to your motherland. To you all I say, muri yeZimbabwe, zvirango zvakaitwa nenyika dzokumadekero idzi ngazviende, zviende, zviende, zvigoenda, ngazvibviswe, zvigobviswa, zvigobviswa. Hatizvidi, hatizvidi, hatizvidi. Viva SADC solidarity, viva African solidarity, viva unity against sanctions, forward ever, backward never. God bless you all.